there a break? No? There's no break? Okay, then 10 minutes. I mentioned that there is even possibly deeper cause for all the other poisons or mental toxins to invade our mind. And that root cause really has to do with a basic misunderstanding. And that comes from, say, let's look at our life. And we know that from childhood till now, our physical appearance, our body has completely changed from that young child we were and where we are now. And our mind has ceaselessly also changed in terms of new experiences. So it's all about a dynamic stream in constant transformation. Yet, we have this feeling, I was that young child, I was this elder person, and I am now, whatever age or whatever my condition. So we have the feeling that there is some kind of something there that defines us, and that is more or less the core, constant core, me, that has been traveling throughout those stages, and without which I would not be me. I would be just nobody, no person, there would be no life, there would be no being, it would just be like nothing. And then, once we have this notion, then obviously that becomes the most precious and important things, because that's the only thing that's always there. And so we want to protect it. And if we start protecting something, then it becomes always under threat. If I have some very precious piece of gold here, I'm going to be always worried about it. I'm not worrying about this label of that tea bag. I don't care what could happen to it. But if I start thinking that this is written inside, this is a voucher for $100,000, then I'm starting to worry a little more about that piece of paper. So it becomes a target also. If some bad guys know about it, then it's going to try to get it. And people will feel jealous. He has a $100,000 tea bag. So all kinds of trouble will come from that label. It's just a piece of paper, but it becomes a huge source of trouble, conflict, worry, craving, envy, and so forth. Then also have to please it, make it happy. So all kinds of attraction, repulsion going to come out of this idea that it is so important, so precious, so central. Well, if it's really $100,000 worth tea bag, maybe I should actually care for it. But if it's just, I'll tell you a story. I had a friend who was an American monk, he died now. And he was very carefree, sort of a little bit eccentric, never keeping things. And when we were building our monastery, we had an elder monk who was in charge. And he was very sort of eager to finish the work and get some help. So that monk really had nothing. One day to tease that old monk, he gave him a check for $10,000, and it was 30 years ago. But I was so happy going on with this check. There was nothing behind it. It was completely dead check. But for one day, he was so careful with that check. And when he found out it was a joke, he was really upset. it's also, illusory added value to a piece of paper. So now what is the situation with that ego stuff? So it's not, of course, completely irrelevant because that's what experiences our life. But are we making it up for a big part? So what is the issue there? So first of all, there is the I. We wake up in the morning and we think, I exist, or I'm cold, or I'm hungry, or I'm comfortable, or I'm happy. So yeah, of course, instant experience is there. There's nothing wrong with that. Then there is our history. That stream of consciousness that goes on and on. So much experiences, joy and sorrows. Something we remember, something we don't. And the whole set of our experience now has somehow sort of fashioned what our consciousness is now. So yes, somehow we are the result of that. All the good and bad things we have done and experienced and done to ourselves, done to others. Well, there is a result. If you have a river, beginning assume it's pure water, then there are some sediments coming from the hills. It could be going to a medicinal meadow. At the end, the water has healing properties. Then it goes to a factory that puts a lot of chemicals, or you put some fluorescent dye in the water and it sort of shines the dark. So all kinds of things can happen to the water. And then down 100 kilometers down the stream, what you see is the result of all that history. So yes, cause and effect have an impact. But now, we don't stop there. We imagine that there is this core, the I, me, the ego. So now, does that correspond to experience and reality, or is it just a concept? That's the real question we should ask ourselves. Because that's not an empty question, because we invest so much on that. I mean, is the $10,000 check real or just a joke? So, there is a stream of experience, moment after moment. We have the feeling that, yes, I feel these pleasant, unpleasant, neutral experiences. Yes, we are aware, we are conscious, momentarily. And the past has an impact. Our hopes for the future have an impact. But does that mean that there is a separate entity that I? Say, if we compare that to the river again, we can call a river a certain name. We can say that is the Ganges, the Mississippi, Amazon. It's okay. Every river has its own history, it's special. It has qualities, it has problems, it has size, it has a volume. Oh, okay. So we can call it that. And we know it's a convention, but still it's helpful, and we need that to go about describing things and expressing things, and it's fine. But that doesn't mean that somewhere in the Amazon River there is this kind of magic core of it, that's the Amazon, always being there. The heart of the Amazon. Or some kind of little being that's coming out from time to time at the surface and say, hey, I'm the Amazon. Everything else is circumstantial. But the real Amazon, that's me. Or that there is a boat that goes to the Amazon from its source till the ocean, on which is written, the Amazon, the only real one. So we behave as it was, there will be something like that. Me. I'm the boss. I'm the center of the world. Everything happened in the past is me. And now it will be there until I die. Okay, and we give so much importance to that. So it is worth investigating if that is the ultimate target for praise and insult, for gain and loss, for fame and anonymity, for pleasure and pain. That entity, how is it? Okay, so we experience it in the body, we think that's me. I'm not thinking this body belongs to someone else. And if someone pushes me, I think he pushed me. Oh, so that means the me is in the body. But then if he says something bad, you say it hurts my feeling. So now suddenly it's no more the body, it's somewhere in the mind. So that me has shifted from the body to the mind. Because you don't push the mind, but you can push the body and still you think it's me. Well, if it's in the body, where? Is it moving quickly? When you step on your feet, you push, you have stepped on my feet. So suddenly the me is down there. But if you cut the feet, then you have no me anymore. If you cut it very fast, and wait, it doesn't come up again, then you completely lost yourself. No, you don't. So then is the delusion throughout the body. So when you cut the feet, you cut, say, 1/10 of the me. No, you don't think like that. You say, it's me, I lost the feet. But you think you're 100% still there. But if you could keep on cutting, where do you stop? Even you have your head, if you can think, still it's you. You have no more body, but you have a head. So of course it's some kind of not very nice looking, but you still think it's you. And people can tell you things that hurts you or praise you and you feel great. Basically you are still there, feeling a bit strange of having just a head and no body. But somehow the me is definitely the ego. It will be a very hurt and miserable ego, but it will be there. So it's not very reasonable, even though we do associate it with the body. It doesn't seem it's in the body. So of course then, is it outside ourselves? Outside the body, outside the mind? Nobody thinks that. So then the most reasonable place at least to look for is in the mind. Oh great. So now, where? Past. What is memory? Memory is the impact of past experiences on the present. But if you think of the past, good and bad experiences, you are not reliving the past. You can never relive the past in exactly the same way that you experience it. This is just an impact of the past on the present moment. Past is dead. It has the cause and effect of the past as the cause of the past have an effect on the present, but the cause are gone. The future also has an impact. If you think you're very worried about something that's going to happen, or very excited about something that's going to happen, it does influences your experience now. But it's not existing. It's projection, it's imagination. So the future is not born. So now, here is your famous self that's sort of hanging out between something that does not exist anymore and something that doesn't exist yet. It's a very uncomfortable position. So then in the present, in the present moment, it's very hard to think of a permanent self, because the present doesn't stay. So how can there be, well, when we imagine the self, we think few things. We think it's unitary. Nobody thinks there's 25 selves. And this, when we think like that, it's a huge problem of split personalities. So we think it's one, and we think it's some kind of autonomous and constant. Otherwise, if it self was changing completely every second, then it's no more self, it's just the mind, the consciousness and experience. But then that doesn't fit with this analysis. It's not in the body, past is gone, future is not born, present only lasts a second. And it will be very hard to find a self just very present moment. We don't have a feeling of self, ego in the present moment. Actually, the present moment is kind of the ultimate enemy of the ego. Ego just feeds on past rumination, future imagination, all kinds of feelings. I feel like this, I feel bad, I feel good. The present moment, the ego cannot survive there. So, what is the conclusion? You know, if you think there's a thief in the house, what do? You worry a lot. Or someone tells you, look, is there really a thief in the house? You must get rid of that obsession. There's a thief in the house. So let's go and look. So you close everything nicely, not let anyone new come in the house, and then you look everywhere, under the bed, under the cupboards, up and down, and then at the end it's clear, there's nobody. So then you sort of relax. Until then you worry that there might be a thief hiding in the dark somewhere. So likewise, for this belief of the self, we need to investigate. We do investigate and find nothing. So then what's the point of, again, paying so much importance to that entity that we cannot find? If we find it, great. If it's like in our heart, then we don't want to get rid of it. Who wants to get rid of his heart? But if it's not there, then there's no need to spend all one's life serving an imposter. So again, should not be mistaken. Conventionally, it's fine. You name the river, you name your stream of experience as me or your name. It's okay. But if you start now making that too concrete as an autonomous, permanent self, then it's the cause of so much suffering. Once, the Dalai Lama in France was explaining about that, and then for a whole morning actually, and then at lunchtime when we collected all the written questions of the audience so that he could answer some of them in the afternoon, I mentioned to him before we started the afternoon session that there's so many questions about the self, or the no-self, because people say, well, then how can we function? Who is experiencing the result of the past? How can even you speak of reincarnation? Who is doing that? Who is going? It doesn't make any sense. Law of cause and effect. Who is experiencing the result of the cause if there is no one? So then he told me, that's your fault. Translation. You didn't translate properly. I never said there is no self. I just said that the self is there, but it's a conventional sort of conventional concept. Yes, there is a relative self, and it's fine. If you know that the Mississippi is a name, and you can use that, and it has a function. Yes, to be called this and that, and to feel that there is a continuity in the person that is different from another continuity. Your stream of experience is not the same as mine. That's fine. I can call these different names and use those names for functioning in life. But that's not the same as thinking that there is a core entity that's autonomous and permanent, that is the ego, and then I revolve all my perception around that. And that gives what? The exacerbated sense of self-importance. That is the root of attraction and repulsion that becomes distorted, compulsive, hatred, obsession. They come from that. If there's no such sense of strong, independent ego, there's no reason for those to come. I'll give you some examples. If someone shouts at you and tells you terrible things, you feel hurt or angry. If yourself in front of a cliff with the same pitch of voice, the same level of decibels, you shout the same insult and the cliff sends back as an echo, why are you laughing? Because you don't feel that you are actually after yourself. You don't mean to hurt your own ego, so you don't care. Because the ego is not you. You have not targeted yourself. You just said that, it came back as empty sounds. But if the person next to you with the same voice, with the same intensity of sound, say the same thing, then you feel terribly hurt. Why? Because you think, oh, he is after me, he's after my ego. So the ego becomes a target. That makes the difference. It's the same with the mind. This is just, you see, the same thing when there is a labor of mind, it completely changes your perception. And this is completely artificial. Just as the ego is artificial, the mind, just as the eye is artificial, the mind is artificial. And this can be shown. It has been even studied in psychology. And there's a very neat experience that's been done. You give to 50 students like a cup or a very cheap watch, and everything is valued, say, $10. And if you ask 50 other students, how much would that cost? And you do the average, you come to $10. Everybody agree on that. There's no mystery. Then you take 50 students, and those objects which everybody agrees is about $10, you give to them as a present. They're quite happy. You get a cup, you get a small watch, or some pen, nice pen. Now you wait 10 minutes, and you say, no, okay, we are going to buy that from you. So I give you $10. And you say, no, I want to keep it. Then you increase, $12. $15, okay, $15, that's fine. So invariably, they will not sell it for at least 50% more. Everyone will think it costs $10. So what is those $5 is the added value of the mind, the cost of the mind. That's all. So it shows that how much it's purely a projection. And Isola's dilemma gives that example of the Chinese vase, a beautiful porcelain antique vase. You see it in a shop window, and then the employee or the cat sort of make it for, and you say, oh, what a pity, $1,000 vase is broken. You go on, that's sad. But no big deal. You just bought that vase, it's on your chimney, the cat make it for, and my vase, huge difference because the mind. So anyway, those shows that a strong identification with the I as being some kind of autonomous core is a source of trouble. And the more we have a strong identification, the more it becomes a target. It's like opening our chest and the heart is there, very, very sensitive. So we are vulnerable, hence this feeling of insecurity and fear. And it's a constant sort of source of preoccupation. But we don't have to identify with this in the same way that we don't have to identify with our anger. It happens, it is there, but it's not really the deepest aspect of our experience. If you remain in the freshness of the present moment, that's not so strong. And there's an interesting state of mind that is called the flow. I mean, this is very intuitive in meditation, but there's also study in modern psychology. A flow is when you are fully engaged into something, like an artist, or a sportsman, or a surgeon, when he's doing an operation, or climbing a mountain, or engaged into a painting, for several hours. It's just taken in that flow. And then time is forgotten, and the sense of self is very reduced in those times. And then after that we end up, and then all the exhaustion is felt, and again I'm me. In the pitch of the action, when there is enough challenge, it's neither too difficult nor too boring, it's really taken in the flow of the action. So in that time, the sense of self is quite reduced. So in meditation it's the same, but not combined with action, it's combined with a state of mind. It's an inner flow. And this is much more enjoyable than being constantly preoccupied with I. So I think this is quite helpful. We're not aiming at becoming vegetables, but in fact, if you look at people who have much less sort of triumphant ego, self-importance, I would say, like my case, experience of my teachers and the Dalai Lama, this is one of the most remarkable things to be in their presence, is this lack of sort of ego trip. And they are so nice to be with. I've seen so many times, especially in the beginning when he was not so well known and respected in the West. But there were a lot of people who were very sarcastic. I've seen a lot of press conferences where they begin by asking sort of nasty questions, hoping to unsettle him. And what usually happens is that because it doesn't affect him at all, so therefore he can reply with a completely, sort of accepting it completely and not, obviously not minding and saying something humorous or self-depreciating, and the guy suddenly start laughing himself, and it feels like no more sort of bullets to shoot because it doesn't work. There's no target, so you're not going to shoot any target just in space. So it immediately completely undo the aggressivity or the sort of trying to put him in a bad situation, because he doesn't care. You can put him even further down, he thinks it's funny. So that immediately changes the situation. While if you have someone who is so puffed up with ego, it's very easy target. The more you do it, you can see immediately it hits and hits more, and then you tend to shoot more. Obviously it's fun, because the people react so strongly. So that's why transparent egos are much more easy to deal with, and much more pleasant to be with, and much nicer persons. So they don't become vegetables, they become free. And therefore, being free from that, they are less insecure. If you're less insecure, you don't spend your life protecting your ego, so that all waste of time, now you can use to be open to others, because you don't worry about others saying good, bad things like that. So you are available. There's a sense of readiness toward others, because you are not worried all the time about yourself. So feeling deep sense of confidence, and confidence doesn't come from strong ego, confidence comes from precisely freedom from that misconception. Because now nothing can really hurt that ego, so you're not worried. You don't have this wound to protect all the time. So that's what freedom is about. And that's come from not identifying with your image, with your name, with your all kinds of image that you construct about yourself and you want to project outside, and you want people to take it for granted. And all that is so much mental constructions. So that's for the ego business. And then maybe this afternoon we will see how we can use all that to really develop now. We deal mostly with dealing with mental toxins, afflictive emotions, and the root of it. But there's a whole much more, rewarding chapter, is how to cultivate those very positive emotions that are like if you get rid of the negative emotions that are going from -10 to 0, but you don't want to stay there. So getting rid of the pathology makes you relatively healthy, but you want to go further step, optimal. And that comes for you and for others to cultivating the positive qualities like compassion and altruism. So how we do that, we will look at it this afternoon. And since yesterday I At the end of the afternoon also, maybe I will offer you a journey to the Himalayas and Tibet, just some images, nothing to do with happiness, but to make maybe happy. But now since we spoke, actually I should show those images on the humanitarian projects after speaking of compassion, because they are really compassion in action, but just so that we don't get too many things to show in the afternoon. So we're going to speak about compassion, but obviously compassion cannot remain a theory. Compassion without action is a bit sterile. Only wishing many people be happy, that's great, but unless you do something about it, not much will come out of it. But also compassion without wisdom is blind. I mean, you may try to do things and it's not going to work. So at least the motivation should be there, and also we should put it in action. It's like wanting to undertake a journey and then actually going on the journey. So developing altruism and compassion is the way that spontaneously then you will act in altruistic and compassionate ways. So since we are, as you might have heard, we are involved, we started a lot of humanitarian projects, and some of our friends here know very well and have been helping us for that. So I wanted just to briefly show you some of the things we have been doing for the last 10 years. We have about 30 projects in different areas of the... I will show those images again. The Himalayas. And so these are in Tibet, and nowadays it might be a little bit of jeopardy, but we hope in the long term we will continue them. And we have a lot of wonderful people there. So this is the area where we work. All eastern Tibet, from Amdo, which is Qinghai now, down to Yunnan, in Nepal, Bhutan, and India, especially in Bihar. So that's quite a big area for just a bunch of volunteers. But we have a wonderful network of people. So like in Tibet, until the late 90s, it was almost impossible to do anything there. In 1985, when we first there with Kesari Moshe, a teacher, we found a valley which was his birthplace where there was a lot of leprosy. So we mentioned authorities, although at that time I had really massive no means of doing anything like that. I was just living with €30 a month basically. So I just could not obviously build a clinic, but thinking to find some help to make a leprosy. And the government said, no. There's no leprosy here. We told the WHO that it's finished. There's no leprosy, so just get out. So anyway, but in the late 90s, it became possible to do something. So here first in India, well, we're not doing only things where there are Buddhist population, obviously. We do things wherever we can and wherever there's an opportunity. So in India, in Bihar, is the most impoverished, one of the really most lawless and impoverished province of India. Why Bihar? Because it's the place at Bodh Gaya where the Buddha achieved enlightenment 2,500 years ago. We have a small monastery there. And when we were building it, we were going to villages where there were stone carvers, and we found those stone carvers were completely left on their own with no medical assistance whatsoever. Absolutely zero. So we thought of doing a mobile clinic, going to those villages, and now we go 12 villages with 2 doctors and nurses, and we treat 40,000 patients a year. And these are so poor that even you ask them 10 rupees, that's about €1 for the whole treatment, they can't. They just can't afford. You see that guy with the stick? Well, he's one of the many in that village who suffers from bone deformation. Reason that there's some fluoride in the water. And everybody, when they grow adult, they have some deformed bones. It only needs a $3,000 tube well to go 70 meters deep and have clean water, but nobody has been doing that for them. Government said just find somewhere else to go. Well, how can we do? 100 families find new fields to cultivate and go. So we go, we have now, as I said, 40,000 patients a year. This lady, when I was there that morning, she collapsed 3 times. She was pregnant and anemic, and she just kept on falling So this is one of the tube wells. It's very simple. We made dozens of them. And this is now we have those mobile clinic, but we also now want to build a health center in Bodh-Gaya, because people come to our monastery. We have a garage where the doctors see 150 patients a day, and they even sometimes sleep at night there. They come the night before to make sure that they will get admitted in the morning from all over the villages. So we hope to build it's not a huge project, The building itself will cost about $150,000. And we'll have a lab, we'll have a DOTS center, that's for tuberculosis. If we have a DOTS center, we'll reduce our cost because the government will give us free TB medicine. We'll have malaria and HIV tests. So this is something that seems to be the next step for that area. And we are we have got the land there, and we just need to find a little extra help to start the building. Now in Nepal, we have that's our largest project in size. We have this clinic where we have 50 persons working there, and we also treat about 50,000 patients a year. And we have dental lab, pharmacy, we have a palliative care unit where we can accommodate 8 people who are dying. And this was the manager before, someone else is doing it. Now in Tibet, so education, of course, is so important, especially for girls, as you know. The education of girls is directly influencing the survival of the newborns. So this is one school we built in nomadic area. There was no school before that at all. Now 165 kids. Within a week the school was full. And now we give them lodging, education, food and medicine. We have 8 teachers. And so those are from nomad areas, and they were not going to school before. Here they are dancing for folk dances for receiving the visitors. It's another school in the nomad area as well for 50 kids, and as you can see, they're already there even the school is not even finished. So they're really eager to study. That's one wonderful thing about those kids. This is our largest project in Qinghai, in Amdo, a school for 700 children. Now we hand it over to the local government. It serves 26 villages which also have no school. And this is elementary and secondary school. And now it has been there for 6 years. And those first batch of 70 students out of that are going to college and later to university. It's our Green Party, ecological teaching and all that. You see how happy they are to study. It's really encouraging. But it's not that expensive. A school like that costed 20,000 euros. Stone, local people help. It's another school in the winter, minus 20 Celsius. So. And now also for the first time we have from our elementary school in Sechen, we have girls who could send to Kangding, it's at the ancient border between Tibet and China, to college. And we again emphasize mostly on women education. She got now getting training as a doctor. She got training as a lawyer. And those are other of our kids in this college. Unfortunately, that is exactly the place where, day before yesterday, the police went into a monastery, smashed some of the Dalai Lama's photos, trampled them, arrested a 74-year-old monk, who was taken to the police station. The next morning, on April 3rd, 700 people, including 350 monks, went in front of the police station and asked early morning that the monks would be released. The police told them to get out. They stayed, and after half an hour, they just simply fired upon them, and 15 people died, including 6 women, 3 monks, and 1 child. So that's the place where we are working, and I pass through twice a year. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's certainly going to tragic moments. This is a place which has no electricity some years ago. Now they are training We have a vocational training in the valley. They have 11 different types of crafts. So here they do input of Tibetan text. Here they do stitching, weaving. And so we support a group of women there. They have more than 150 people who trained, but we mostly support the women vocational training, health projects. So this is one of the 16 clinics we built in Tibet. Very simple, as you can see. That time there was still no electricity there, well, just a generator. And there's 2 doctors and 1 nurse and medical supplies. This is a bigger project in that valley where we do the vocational training as well. But still, because of everyone came to help, this also didn't cost more than $40,000. So that's a Tibetan medicine clinic. But most of our other clinics are allopathic medicine. This is in a valley where to get to any doctor you have to drive for 5 hours. And provided there's a car, and provided the road is okay. So now there's a small clinic there, and this makes a big difference. And you see how much, we went there with a French doctor, and whole valley is coming just all the time. It's become a very active place for health. A program with the mother and child, and there's so much child mortality for silly reasons, like they cut umbilical cord with a rusty knife and stuff like that, and it doesn't take much to show them. This is our friend Raphael, who you know, who is very, very active in that Save the Mother and Child program we have. She has that plastic baby down there is a laughing baby, and they really like that, the Tibetans. And then we train women who train others. So this is a nomadic area. That elderly lady, she was trained by us. We train more than 150 sort of like people like that who go there in the village and then explain. So this is a clinic being built and now finished. French doctor who came with us every year. Doctor from Israel. And this guy, he has such a bad TB that it's already getting to his chest. And frankly, I didn't need the doctor to find out it was TB. You can see it. And you never see that bad here. Now, if anyone is a doctor, you expect that the patient will be in the waiting room. So if you want to come with us, don't expect that. They all want to see. That's the entertainment of the year, is seeing the doctor consultation. So from morning till evening, they want to look. So you can't get rid of them. You have to get used to it. So this is a case which, for me, is very moving because it shows even that one case will, for me, justify everything because life has no price. She was a lady who was a 13-year-old daughter and an old mother. Husband had died, maybe of TB. She had bone TB, and she was now not able to get up. I mean, she would have died a few months later. But after 1 year of medication, we just came at that by accident. We were just stopping by the road and visiting a nomad camp. She's under a tent, and found her. And she had no means to go to a doctor, and they don't go to a doctor. It's too expensive to go to a big Chinese hospital. So they just wait. So with medication now she survived. The doctor the year after. Also we can bring sunglasses. They like that very much. So elderly people, we go to places and find out, the extended family tradition is very strong in Tibet. They will never leave alone elderly person. Only if that elderly person has no relatives, so it happens. So in that case, their life is quite miserable. They can't work anymore. They can't grow the field. They can't take care of the cattle. So neighbors help a little bit. The sense of community is very strong, but still the life is quite difficult. So this is a place that we took over, and then within a few months, here the difference. So you can see from all aspects, it looks very different. She doesn't have to read books on happiness. And this is a friend of mine who's a Tibetan doctor, so, but he's not an ophthalmologist and not a dentist. He has 2 pairs of glasses and none of them is corrected. Orphans, we have 50, 60 orphans that we look after. We just help them to have a little extra clothes, extra food, extra medicine. And bridges, it seems, why should we build bridges? That's the government job. That's the government job if the government does its job. But then we have to see the fact that's what happens when there's no bridge. And so we build 8 bridges now, including one on the Yangtze River. We're very proud. It's like the Three Gorge Dam or something. But that bridge was first built too low by the Chinese contractor. It was taken away after 1 month. So fortunately we managed to have him rebuild it higher. But there was no bridge 50 kilometers before, 50 kilometers after. And people will cross, you see how wide is the river there? And people will cross on those kind of funky boats, like I'll show you what they're crossing. Here, up there, on the corner. And this round thing that looks like a basket. So many people die, and you don't even find the bodies. So that's why we need to build a bridge. And this is in Bhutan. We have a small program called Save the Friends of the Children. We have 60 kids from difficult families that are very poor, or father is alcoholic or something. So 20 we are fully taking care. We build a house for them. And others we just have someone looking after them and make sure they go to school, they have books, they have clothes. And this is Solness, who is the embodiment of kindness and compassion. And Kensei Rinpoche, my teacher, who inspired all that, and the present abbot of our monastery, Rinpoche, with whom we are doing those projects. This is our website. So, anyone, please help us to help others. I assure you that it won't be wasted. We have 2% overhead expense. It's someone called us a positive deviance. And thank you for those helping us so far. Thank you. So, maybe we have time for it's lunchtime. And 1 or 2 questions, and then this afternoon we might keep more time for questions.
Sì. Sono 2 domande. Sono 2 domande. Ok.
Ça va? Oh non, monsieur, ok, sure. Ah d'accord. Ok, va bene. Merci. Ah, c'est bien, c'est elle qui fait. I'm so glad to hear you.
Vorrei capire, io sento che c'è un rischio nel momento in cui descrivi quella tecnica in cui mi devo allontanare dalla chiamata rabbia, da un'emozione tipo la rabbia, e quindi la lascio dissolvere in qualche modo. Mi chiedo fino a che punto non sia rischioso allontanarsi completamente da quella che è una vita emotiva, e a quel punto lì posso pensare di vivere la mia vita senza emozioni che sono il moto della mia esistenza. E una persona senza emozioni, secondo me, è pericolosa. E questa è una domanda. L'altra è che cosa pensate, che cosa pensa il buddismo della psicoterapia, delle psicoterapie o anche della psicanalisi? Grazie.
D'abord, oui. Oh, sorry. I was hearing French. Yes, you are right in a way. As I mentioned, we sort of, we didn't finish, but we went through negative emotions, and this afternoon we are going to speak about positive ones. And then we can increase them at the infinite, 1,000 times more than what you have them now. So it's not going to be boring at all. Loving kindness, compassion, inner freedom, inner strength, spontaneous expression of those, we can go endlessly increasing them. So, now, about negative emotions. First of all, they are not going to disappear that quickly. Secondly, if they disappear, for those, I cannot speak for myself, but for those who have been witnessing, who have very little of those, they are not boring people at all. They don't seem bored either. I know that the Dalai Lama, he says he gets a bit annoyed from time to time, but he really has no hatred. It's impossible for him. I'm fully convinced, and so is for my teacher, because I've been staying 15 years day after day with Kensei Moshe, and never saw one gesture, one word, one thought that could harm someone. It could be strict and severe, but not harming. I would give my life on the scale to tell the Dalai Lama cannot willingly harm someone. I'm going to harm this guy. He could be angry for a few moments and come back to his natural state, but harming someone, hatred, I'm completely convinced it's gone from his mind. That's the result of having worked with that. So he's not bored, he's not insensitive, he doesn't look like a vegetable, he's the most inspiring person. And I promise that you will not miss jealousy, you will not miss obsession, you will not miss hatred if it goes 50% less, 75% less, and even that one last percent when it goes, you will say, oh, I have lost such a precious thing in my life. You will feel such relief. I mean, you would say that life would be boring without knee pain or back pain or headaches. But first you knew them, you know life has those things. And it's not that you never experience in your life. But you don't need to experience every day so that life is rich. Just for the sake that when they are not there, you're so happy. Okay, you know. If they go for good, that's fine, no problem. And one important thing with this is you are not just repressing them. It's keeping them as a lot of time bombs under the carpet. That will not work. You are liberating them and making them so that they vanish. Because mere repression, suppression will not work. Letting them explode also not working. That's how we get in trouble, and we give trouble to others. Endlessly. It's not really a desirable situation. Why we say someone, when someone comes in the room, we shrink because we know that person is constantly getting angry. So it comes in and says some trouble is on the way, even before starting the conversation. If someone is very pacified and kind, and you can say, hey, he's a nice guy coming, we can have a good time. So definitely, as I said yesterday in the beginning, the idea that this makes a rich life, and a colorful life, and without that we'll be bored, does not correspond to experience of those who got partially or completely rid of those things. Now, yes, positive emotion, they can fill up your life. That's what we are looking for. But it's no point having those. It was the same thing as I mentioned yesterday. we know what bad food tastes like, too much pepper, too much salt. We don't have to, every starter of every meal has to start with that to remind us that how good is the rest of the lunch. So I think if we seriously think there's no advantages of keeping those problem makers. Now therapies, among the various modern therapies, there are some which are quite close on Buddhist ways. Buddhist way is not so much to try to dig endlessly in the past, but what is the impact on the past of the present? Well, let's take, I don't know, the war between the French and the Spanish 300 years ago. You can read history books and feel excited about it, but today on my life it has no impact basically. So whatever happens may be terrible, there may be terrible massacres, horrible things. They don't change the quality of my life now. So past matters in the way it impacts the present. If it doesn't, it's fine, it's dead. Now if it impacts the present, what do you need to deal with the present? Now if you become expert in not being the slave of your thoughts, dealing with emotions and freeing them, that's all you need. So it's more about becoming skillful to free yourself from these arising of disturbing emotions. And if you're expert at that to the extent that they don't make you any trouble, then their past history is not an issue. So in that sense, the Buddhist approach is closer to some trends of modern psychology like cognitive therapy, because that's what they try to do. What is the trouble? What makes you in trouble now? Why? Is it reasonable, or is it just to meditate and blew it up so big that you are in trouble? So we are not so much into endlessly reviewing the film, the movie of the past. That's probably the best way to keep on ruminating and bringing up this trouble again. So that's in a few words. So let's check again our motivation. Why are we here? Why? What? Let's come on the surface. What really matters in our life. And if that at least becomes clearer, then it's much easier to find the means to achieve that. If what we deeply aspire to is not clear, then what can we achieve? Where shall we put our strength, our energy, our intelligence, our efforts? So we need to eliminate all the noise in mental chatter. We need to pause in the endless waves of distractions and just make our mind enough quiet for a while that what really matters comes forward and becomes clear to our mind. It's like if we lose a key in a small lake, then the way to find it is to just wait till the mud has settled and look and take it. If we steer everything with a stick, we won't find it. So that motivation, I think, the one that gives us the most courage, the most strength, the most meaning, is the idea of gaining the capacity to transform oneself so that one can better transform the world. Gaining enough human qualities, so that one can put them at the service of others in meaningful ways. And since we talked about helping others, charitable, humanitarian projects, you see, all the time, the problem that arises, even within the humanitarian world, those who are supposed to be 100% dedicated to others. We are not talking about armed dealers or something, people whose job is to help others. And still, those efforts are plagued by corruption, by clashes of egos, by sort of taste of, double sort of speed, so that the help that is allocated to a place or a country, half of it comes back to the donor by high salaries and so forth. So that's at different degrees from the extreme of corruption and between ego clashes and simply, lack of dedication. It's all, even the intention is to help, the human flows are interfering. So that shows even more that the best training, the best preparation, the best workshop, the best seminar one might do to work on humanitarian and sustainable development or whatever should begin by paying attention to how can we develop those positive human qualities and gain oneself the strength to deal with equanimity and inner confidence with whatever comes one's way. One day might be in a very comfortable situation, the next day sitting on the back of a truck in the rain. If the same enthusiasm, the same joy of engaging in what we do remains, both will be equally easy and meaningful and fulfill different purposes, but we will be able to follow the direction that makes sense so that we can accomplish things and not have regret. So we spoke a little bit about how to deal with negative emotions. But the next step is, that should go at the same time, but say in terms of explanation, now we also should consider how do we develop positive ones, those who really build up a good human beings, a good heart, a vast mind. So also those are not so much using antidotes, which are necessary when the negative emotion pops up, but more especially cultivating again and again. Just as a sportsman will train, an athlete, a chess player, a musician, a painter, anyone who requires skill, who from being a hesitant and confused beginner will become someone with full mastery of his or her heart, who can in a harmonious gesture produce a beautiful piece. And that results from constant effort. And there's nothing wrong with that. That will be ultimately surprising if mind training will be the only thing that comes about simply because one wishes so. We don't mind, or at least we accept the idea of going to school for 15 years. We eagerly seek further training, professional training. We don't mind running in the rain in the morning to be healthy, or pedaling on a bicycle in a flat that goes nowhere, just for the sake of being strong and healthy. That bicycle doesn't even go to the kitchen. So, why we do so? Because we envision the benefit of doing so. And that's where interest comes from. So now, if all that comes through learning and training, cultivating, familiarizing oneself, and again, just to see, I want to be a good human being, just that wish, time of the snap of a finger, is not going to be actualized. That will be the only thing in the world that comes without doing anything for that to happen. But we are a little bit hesitant, change. We're not sure what change will bring, maybe something worse. It requires certain kind of effort which we are not used to. There's a kind of inertia facing inner change. We're a bit worried about looking inside. What are we going to find in the depth of our mind? And of course, the kind of, we could say laziness, when we can escape having to do efforts, usually we try. And there's different kinds of laziness. One is simply want to do nothing, that's the usual one. But there are more subtle forms of laziness, saying precisely, we don't need to do that. Again, this famous story, this is what makes a colorful life. So it's not for me, I'm not the kind of type that can change my mind. It's too much for me. So it's like giving up the race before even starting. And then there is the laziness of knowing what really matters and yet endlessly doing small other things because we don't want to start the main thing. So it's a kind of escapism. In the Tibetan Buddhism teaching, this is one category of laziness. So, how to get more determined? Well, there are ways to awaken our enthusiasm. One is to appreciate the value of human existence. This is not just like, we are thrown in this world to pass our genes and things like that. There's so much potential what we can achieve. And that's not going to last so long. So there's also the immediacy of the time that goes by every second. So those is not to feel like oppressed or impatient or nervous, but simply to value time, to value every moment like so precious. So how to use it best? Not by being frantically busy, but using best, whatever that may mean. Just be convinced, confident that that is the best way I could spend my time. And then contemplating the benefit of mind transformation. There's always a potential for change. Because we are dealing with the mind, and the mind is eminently transformable, we always underestimate the power of transformation of mind. We know that we can push the body, but only to a certain extent. From hardly being able to jump a meter high, some people by training they can jump 2.14 meters. It looks inconceivable if you look at it. But managed with training. But there isn't obviously the same limitations with the mind. Suppose you grow loving kindness. Why could not you double that loving kindness? You don't see any sort of wall that would prevent loving kindness or compassion to grow stronger. It can go deeper, vaster, stronger, more present in your mind, more intense, more over all embracing. So there's no reason for limitation to that. Suppose you have a feeling of inner peace and serenity. You can always imagine it can be vaster and deeper and more quality could increase. Those are qualias, they are not quantities. So the quality can be even more beautiful. You can say that a piece of music is the most beautiful that you can conceive, and that nobody will do that, because of course something can be even more poetic, more beautiful, more ravishing. Why should there be a limit to that? So therefore, we all have the potential to deal with our mind. And also the fact that the mind is influenced by outer circumstances, but not intrinsically. You can always override them. So that gives a lot of freedom, a lot of leisure to work with the mind. We need to start somewhere, but there's a lot that can be done. So in the case of so-called positive emotions, of wholesome mental state, in the which sense positive? It's not like just a moral judgment, this is good, this is evil. There's not only the good and bad that our thoughts, words and action do in terms of happiness and suffering. There's no such thing as good and bad sitting somewhere in space and dictating what should be good and what should be evil. The same action looks the same, but one might produce suffering and be motivated by hate, and then same looking action might relieve someone from suffering. So the aspect of our conduct is more like the motivation and the result. And it's very hard to predict all the consequences of our actions, because we are not in power of the world. But we can always check our motivation. Is it altruistic, selfish or harmful? Is it for the short or the long term? Is it for aimed at just a few people, or just me, or to the larger number of living beings? So all that we can really ponder and think. So now again, as I mentioned, we do all have thoughts of loving kindness, unconditional love, moments of compassion, of peace, of strength, of confidence. Those occur, definitely. We know what it is. But they don't stay. So we can do something that they become more integral part of our every moment of life. And again, we don't learn, riding or skiing, doing it a few seconds every month. We need to repeat that. So how we will proceed? So if we take the example of, say, loving kindness and compassion. So actually those two come from the same source, from benevolence, the wish that beings be happy and be free from suffering. That in turn begins by recognizing that we want to be happy, we want to avoid suffering. So we at least need to be aware of that, not deny that. So go deep within and see that deep feeling, yes, of course, I would like to be safe, healthy, live long, and have a meaningful life, and fulfilled life. Who will not want that? Or if there are obstacles that doesn't work, that prevents me from wanting to live, then may those obstacles be lifted so that I have the taste for life and joy of life. So no matter what obstructs this happiness, without falling in despair, we may wish that may they disappear. And then it just needs that we travel in others people's mind, put ourselves in their shoes or in their minds, and then think, yes, that person, no matter how skillfully or unskillfully that person behave, also somewhere deep within doesn't want to suffer, wants to be happy, even behaves in a very confused way. So that makes us appreciate that's our common denominator, and we also have the right to do so. So now how to develop those natural feeling or emotions of loving kindness and compassion. So we begin by taking by generating them in our mind to make them come alive. So, again, the definitions of each of those, loving kindness in Buddhist terms, or altruistic love, is the wish that may all beings be happy and find the cause of happiness. And the cause of happiness is a very deep aspect of it, because that includes developing your altruism strength, getting rid of mental toxins and so forth, and wisdom. So it's not just may they be happy, but may they be happy and find the real cause for happiness. And so that's benevolence. We wish well to others. Now the same benevolence, and interestingly enough, I don't know if we can have time to speak of that, even in neuroscience, compassion and loving kindness come from the same area of the brain. But that same benevolence, when it's confronted with suffering, it turns into compassion. I mean, that's its natural sort of manifestation, is benevolence confronted with suffering. What does it wish? May sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Temporary suffering, long-term suffering, and the cause of suffering, all that which we have mentioned, the basic ignorance and not just lack of information, but misconstruing reality, and from there, like the ego, or believing that something is intrinsically desirable or intrinsically despicable, all this deformation of reality, and other causes of suffering that comes forth from that, which are the mental poison that we mentioned. So may beings be free from that. So that's the initial differentiation between compassion and loving kindness. So how do we start? It's not just an intellectual pursuit or reasoning. We have to experience it. So let's bring to the mind someone for whom we naturally feel this overwhelming, overflowing sort of love and altruism and unconditional sort of wish that that person may be well and so forth. So we can imagine just take someone very dear to us, could be one of our parents, a companion, or a young child, and that person is here in front of us. Like imagine a young child coming towards us, looking in our eyes, beautiful smile, and then we hug the child and maybe caress his head, and then filled with loving kindness, unconditional. We're not expecting something in return. There's no strings attached. And that's very real. We can feel that we could call it an emotion in the sense that something that moves the mind. But then instead of letting it vanish and go into something else, we will try to maintain that. We will try to nurture that, to perpetuate, to let it fill our mind, and continue to let it fill our mind, and continue to let it fill our mind. And what's wrong doing that for 10 minutes or 15 minutes? It's not an unpleasant feeling. It even turns out it's the most positive among all positive emotions. So it's a kind of win-win situation in a way. It's the most altruistic way of being, leading to altruistic behavior, and also the most harmonious experience we can have. So let it fill our mind, and while it fills our mind and continues to fill our mind, we may keep the same image of this beautiful smiling child, but we might extend that to others. Why excluding anyone? It's like the sun that shines. It shines everywhere. It shines on beautiful things, on less beautiful things. It doesn't discriminate. I'm only shining on the most beautiful piece of art or building. And it gives the same warmth, no matter whether people appreciate or not, the sun is equally shining on all. And maybe in life there are people who are closer to that sun, so they get more warm because that's life, and we have some special connections. But it's not by the fact that people who are close to us get more warm because they are close to the sun. It's not out of excluding the others. It's simply because of the circumstances of life brought them very near. But the warmth and the light continues to flow everywhere. So that's the idea of combining the all-embracing wish of loving kindness to all beings, and then it may happen that it's in daily life it's applied to those whom we encounter. But it doesn't exclude the other one, it's just circumstantial that some are closer to us. So, we can extend to everyone, no matter who they are, very close, or strangers, or even enemies, for the reason which I have mentioned. To extend that loving kindness to enemies is not to condone their negative actions, it's not to wish them success in their negative action, it's not to approve them in any way. The best thing we can wish out of loving kindness is that they stop being obnoxious and terribly harmful to others. In that case, they would stop being our enemy and the enemy of humanity. That we can wish, and we should wish it even 10 times more. The more the person is harmful, the more we can wish that. And there's no need to have any restraint in increasing that altruistic love to the worst possible, most harmful possible human beings. So then here too, there's no need for restrictions. So then, at some point, if we keep on cultivating that, then definitely there will be a state where there's nothing but loving kindness in our mind. And we can maintain that. If we maintain that for a while and repeat that process regularly, this is exactly how our mind will change. By being exposed to a particular way of being, particular way of thinking, continuously and repeatedly. Doesn't mean that we can't do it 12 hours a day, but even we were doing 10, 15 minutes of loving kindness every day after day, month after month, definitely that will become not second nature, but our first nature, our true nature. And there will be change in the brain, there will be change everywhere. It's not just the brain, it's the way we are. But that's also how the brain changes, by the way, through repeated exposure to something. So we'll stabilize it, we will increase it, we'll make it more clear. So that's how we acquire a new quality, a new skill. And that has to do not just getting any ordinary skill. Playing the piano is a wonderful thing. If we don't play the piano, it's not the ultimate drama in someone's life. It's a choice. But it is a drama if we are not able to develop enough loving kindness, compassion, attention, inner strength, inner peace, openness to others, understanding of interdependence of the world. So that's a drama, because that causes us to suffer, and that causes others to suffer as well. So there are methods to enhance those. For instance, in Buddhism, one speaks of meditating on various aspects of that. We may start with, say, loving kindness. Just as I mentioned, considering all such beings as object of our love, and increasing that. Yeah, it is possible that there might be a slight deviation that turns into attachment, for instance. Then what we will do? Attachment. So how we can... Attachment means passion. We will develop that more for those who we like very much, or those who treat us very well. So it becomes passion. So how to remedy to that? So that we will shift to impartiality, the boundless impartiality, trying to extend that to all, friends, strangers, enemies. Now, if we keep on cultivating this impartiality and equanimity, it's fine as long as we are on the right track, but it's possible that we may go to some kind of indifference. Instead of caring for everyone equally, we begin not caring for anybody equally. So if that happens, this kind of blunting of our loving kindness, because we sort of feel that we're diluting it to abstract sort of people, then we can shift to compassion, to revive our wish that people may suffer, but our wish that people may be free from suffering. And then for that, what do we do? Well, we don't lack object of compassion. There's so much suffering we can see every day in the news, in our life, around us. People suffering from the worst possible violence, of massacres, abuse, war, mutilation. People suffering from terrible sicknesses, from being abandoned, from being alone, from being neglected, from being forgotten, from being persecuted, from being discriminated. Animals, boundless suffering, with no voice to demonstrate in the street. Millions of chicken and cows that are slaughtered when there's the slightest epidemic cannot go with flags on the streets and we want to live. They are chopped, put in boxes, tins, they are caught in snares and nets and so forth. So there's so much suffering. So there's no lack of object for our compassion. So we can meditate on that. So there's that the Dalai Lama says that for last 20 or 30 years, he said there's hardly one morning that he didn't shed tears when thinking of the suffering and compassion of all beings. Every day. It's not that he's depressed. It's not that he lacked courage. It's not that he lacked joy. Everyone who knows him knows how much he laughs all the time. Yet he has this deep compassion. Because precisely he doesn't get lost in despair. So that's the risk of compassion may deviate to disheartening, being overwhelmed by the intensity and immensity of suffering. How could we get out of that? There's no way. Lose courage. So if that happens, we should get out of that. So directly by thinking that there is a way out, and the more there is suffering, the more our courage should be boosted. But also we could shift again to the meditation on rejoicing. There are wonderful people doing wonderful things, who have qualities, who through those qualities have themselves a fulfilled life and then contribute to society, to fulfill the life of others. All kinds of talents that rejoice other people, like artistic talents, social talents, anything that brings happiness to others and also happiness to their own life. So this we can fully rejoice and appreciate. And thinking, may those qualities never vanish, may they increase further, may they keep them and increase them further, fully encouraging them with our hearts. And that gives us a much more enthusiastic picture of the potential of human beings. We should not fall to the wicked world syndrome, that the world is bad and people are bad, and if you just leave them on their own, after 1 month they'll start killing each other. It may happen if the minds are so wild, but it's certainly not the case for all human beings. So, like that, skillfully, and then we can meditate on this rejoicing. Now we may also, again there's also a deviation possible here. We maybe kind of be over-optimistic. Everyone is nice, everyone is good, the world is fantastic, and then maybe also have an unrealistic picture. So then we can go back to compassion or loving kindness, or so we can navigate between those four. We call that the four boundless ideas. Boundless love, boundless compassion, boundless rejoicing, and boundless equanimity. Why are they boundless? Because of their object, infinite number of beings. Therefore, there is infinite benefit or boundless benefit of cultivating them. And they bring also boundless opening in our mind and our hearts. So we call that four boundless ones or measureless ones. And we can go from one to the other so that those never sort of go in a deviation, and each of them reinforce the other. And that together will lead to being a more compassionate person, will lead to a better human being, a better good heart, and then to the strong determination. Yes, I must transform myself to gain the capacity to free the being from suffering and establish them in lasting well-being. So that's what more meaningful purpose can we set to our life. This is a completely win-win situation. This is the best way to have a fulfilled life and the best way to contribute something to others. And the sort of very sad, pursuit of a very narrow-minded, selfish happiness is a lose-lose situation. You can't help feeling miserable, and you become also such a problem for others. So in fact, it's almost common sense. And we need to reflect on that common sense to then know where are we going to put our efforts. This is by seeing the potential results of both ways that we say, yes, definitely, it's worth investing some time. No, very often people say, well, but that's what we lack most. Look at our busy life. We don't have time for those things. Well, we do have time for some things. There's still 24 hours a day. So, of course, we can't say how much people work, how much people sleep. If we take a sort of average, of course, there will always be people outside those categories, but if, let's say 8 hours sleep, 8 hours work, that's at least what governments try to give us. And then 8 hours left, isn't it? So we have to eat, we have to wash, we have to take care of, be with our friends and our family, but it's 8 hours. So now if nobody's asking you to spend 12 hours a day meditating, but if we say that we don't have half an hour to take care of our mind, that means we are not interested basically, because we have half an hour to look at the newspaper and do all kinds of things. So it's a matter of choice. And people who have done that choice, their life is perfectly fine. They are not crippled and they don't lose their jobs because they spend 30 minutes trying to train their minds. So we need to see the benefit of it, interest comes from that, and then engaging in it is very soon rewarding. It's not like, this thing that you get 100% after 5 years and 0 for all the duration of the training. It's like, looking for the sunken treasures of the pirates in the Caribbean Sea. You may look for 20 years and possibly never find it, and if you find it, all of a sudden you get a ton of gold or something. Until then you have 0. You actually spend your whole money trying to find it. So it's not like that at all. Every half an hour that you spend practicing is bringing already a significant improvement of the quality of your life. And not only that, but it spills over the rest of your activities. It sets a trickle, in movement, a small stream that begins and continues, and it's a reference point to which you can come back in other activities. It's a kind of fragrance of perfume that lingers still in the day and gives a different attitude to whatever else you might do, the way you will treat people, the way you react to unexpected situations. Because after all, say ethics, for instance, is not just a set of rules. It's not only about doing things or not doing things. It's also the way you are. Because very often, when there is a situation and you don't have to think, oh, is it ethical or not? And so, if a child is drowning in front of your eyes, you're not scratching your head to know that you should pull that child out. You don't think, this is supposed to be a good thing to save the life of a child. You do it. You do it. Why? Because you have in yourself something that tells you that you want to help that child. But there might be, and we know, terrible cases of psychopaths who might not do that. That's also come from what they are at the moment, that does not express in immediately helping. So in a way, the inner transformation that we try to do through mind training, the way we are is also the way we will spontaneously act in the world when the circumstances comes all of a sudden. The way you spontaneously act will be a reflection of what you are. And that's why ethics is not just about doing, but also about being, and transforming your being as much as you're careful about what should be done and what should not be done. So it all comes together. There is a view, which is an understanding, a better understanding of the nature of reality. Yes, things are dynamic flow. Phenomena are impermanent. Phenomena are related. There is no solid entity sitting anywhere. There is no such thing as an autonomous, singular, permanent self. Things are not intrinsically beautiful or ugly. This is all a network of relation between our consciousness and other phenomena that makes us things appear in certain ways. So we have a correct view of reality. Then, from that view comes a reflection. All beings want to be happy. No one wants to suffer, just as me. Deep reflection, then integrating that to training, to meditation. So those complete each other. Intellectual investigation and analysis, understanding. Deeply reflecting on it. Out of that reflection, getting that into one's experience repeatedly until it is integrated fully in oneself. There's no two things. An intellectual understanding that does not mix with ourselves. Now we can become the living example of what we have understood through training, not just to wishing. That's great, but then we remain untrained and wild. So that's worth spending time, efforts. That's the way to ultimately fulfill the two aims, one's own aims and the aims of others. So, I mentioned about altruistic love and compassion, but in the same way we can train in vigilance, mindfulness, attention, or pay attention to something, keeping one's mind on that object. Could be a physical object outside or mental object inside. And then, the moment you see the mind distracted, bring it back. Just as we did for the breathing yesterday. Pure attention, again and again. If we do that, it's like sharpening, training our attention, and then it will become a tool that we can use in all circumstances. So all those are skills. And happiness is a very vague word, but it's actually a state of fulfillment, of harmony, an exceptionally healthy and optimal state of mind that result from the combination of all those qualities that we develop. It's not just one. Happiness is nothing on its own. Happiness is the end of inner conflicts, the end of hatred, the end of those toxins, or at least the strong diminution of them, and then the growth of the positive ones. And that leads to a harmonious state which has inner freedom, inner strength, which has the resources to deal with whatever comes your way, less fear, more openness to others, therefore compassion and altruism will flow naturally. So all this together makes a fulfilled life, which we can call authentic happiness. You cannot cultivate happiness on its own and then leave it everything else sort of untrained, unruly. It will not work. That's looking for pleasure, euphoria, intensity, sensations, and they will get tired of it and fall back into depression. That doesn't work. There's no such thing as happiness on its own. It's just a combination of those human qualities. And if we mistake happiness with intense sensation, or even sensations of pleasurable sensation, then we are for a bumpy ride, because we get exhausted ourselves to try to renew again and again and again the new pleasant sensation, and then what we end comes is exhaustion, not happiness. And sort of this enchantment, because in the end that's also not bringing any deep fulfillment. And it might even build up some craving and wanting. And interestingly enough, in the brain, the circuit for wanting is not the same as pleasure. So by trying to repeat again and again some pleasurable experience, the pleasure gets blunt out and the wanting gets stronger, so you start wanting something that doesn't bring you any more satisfaction. And then you are really in trouble. So that's not freedom, and that's not happiness. So happiness does really come from cultivating those human qualities. So, anyway, there's so many other aspects that we find in the teachings of wise people. But I think maybe what we could do now is have a few questions, then see where we would like to this conversation to continue. Let's take a few questions, and when time comes we'll take a break, and then we'll have a last concluding session.
Yes, I have just one simple question of clarification, since it's an important topic in Buddhism. There's always called emptiness, very important part of Buddhism. As you told, you were very much talking about the flow, the perception of reality as something that is changing. Is this word like flow or energy, is this the essence of what is called emptiness in Buddhism?
Yeah, so emptiness is a concept that is probably the least understood in Buddhist thinking and philosophy. In the 19th century, many Western philosophers taxed Buddhism with being a nihilistic tradition, that everything is nothing, the nirvana is the final extinction in nothingness, as if you could ever, by some kind of, I don't know how, make something that exists not exist anymore. In the same way that a million causes cannot bring to existence something that doesn't exist at all, nothingness is just a concept of the absence of phenomena. It cannot produce anything. So anyway, things can change. Of course, gross configuration of things can disappear, that's of course. I mean, a house crumble and we die, but it doesn't go into nothingness. So now what Buddhism means by emptiness, it doesn't mean the absence of phenomena, it refers to the ultimate nature of phenomena. So what do we mean by that again? Normally, like in ordinary perception, we think that those things are solid. But are they truly so? In the same way that we did investigate the self, we can investigate this table. Well, first of all, we can just break it into pieces. And it's no more a table to start with. It's a bunch of pieces of wood. Already the concept of table is gone. Then we can reduce these pieces of wood into sawdust. There's no more sticks, there are sawdust and everything. The whole one heap of sawdust looks all the same. Then we can go into the sawdust and go down to atoms, and then from atoms to molecules, then from molecules to atoms, from atoms to particles, and then that depends where we go from there. We could go to quarks, we could go to superstrings, we can find 11 dimensions or whatever. And then we can say, oh well, E equal mc2, well that's also just energy. Or we can say is they come from the vacuum, the quantum vacuum. So that becomes a bit more interesting. The fathers of quantum mechanics have said, well, and Niels Bohr said, no, atoms are not things. And they all say, between two measurements of a particle, from here to there, you cannot say it was there in between. You can't say it at all. All what you can say, if I do a measurement here, something that looks like a particle, in between could be a wave, and now I measure it again, it looks like a particle, but in between I don't know. No way to know. So it doesn't look as solid as we first think it is. So likewise, if we look at things, yes, they appear, so they are not nothingness. They appear and they exist, but in which way? Not as a solid entities. They are, so here we come to the real definition of emptiness. They are empty of intrinsic, solid, autonomous existence. So look at a rainbow in the sky. A rainbow comes through a combination of phenomena, of events. It should be a sun that's shining at a certain angle on a curtain of rain, and then you should be positioned yourself in a certain way. And then you see a rainbow. Of course, we know a rainbow we cannot catch and wear as a cloud, but still we speak of a rainbow. This is something, basically in our mind. But this is the typical example, which can be extended to everything else, as something that only exists because of relations. If you mask the sun, prevent it from shining on the rain, it's not that the rainbow loses something like half of 50%. It's just not there at all. Not a shred of the rainbow is remaining because you remove a sun that didn't seem to be part of the rainbow. So phenomena come to interdependent origination. Not out of themselves, not without cause, not because of one cause, not because of one permanent cause, purely through interdependence. So they are void of intrinsic existence. That's meaning of emptiness. So the ultimate vision of reality, things appear, yet they are void of intrinsic existence. Because they are void of intrinsic existence, they can appear. If they were static, autonomous, permanent, nothing will happen. They will not appear. They will be, even we cannot perceive them because perception needs a relation. So that's the meaning of emptiness.
Sounds very similar to me as the scientific concept of energy.
Well, it depends if you reify energy or not, but could be. No, energy, tell you frankly, is one of the concepts in physics that's most unclear. Nobody's actually can tell what energy is. they say it's kind of convenient way of saying that things are empty of intrinsic existence, but whereas the potential to appear, but so what? It's like words, energy that is not something.
I must admit I have difficulties with the practice of watching at negative emotions when they appear, especially either in meditation or especially when they come in the daily life, because they can be very, very strong. And very practically, I wonder, does it mean that I have to observe within my body, for example, how they manifest themselves in the body, with the pulse or the heart, or how do I do this?
Yeah, it could be, whatever is when I say watch the emotion, if it's a physical feeling, well, actually it's a very revealing if it's a physical feeling. Because I didn't go into detail, there's another way to investigate that. And that relates to the physical feeling. Okay, you have a strong feeling of sadness or anger, so something that, sometimes we say, it ties a knot in our chest, right? There's a strong feeling here, like that. Okay, great, then look at it. Is that anger? No, or I don't know whether it's sadness, despair, or... So, okay, you have a feeling, but what? Does it has a shape, a color? Okay, it has a seemingly location, but if you really look at the feeling without the concept attached to it, why is it painful? If you have a pain in your knee, which is not related to emotions, it's not very nice, but it's not the end of the world. So if you really look at purely the physical feeling, something and not in your chest, and look at it with full mindfulness. I mean, that gaze now, that looking, just puts it entirely in that feeling. Again, not identified with the cause. Another dissociation. If you look at that feeling, it's not going to last. Look at the feeling, forget about the cause. Temporarily, look at each of those symptoms, one by one. Okay, the anger itself, you look at it. Maybe it disappears, but then you feel the strong feeling is still there. Okay, look at that sensation. Entirely, your entire mind is looking at the sensation. Nothing else. Try to keep your attention. It's also going to melt away, it's going to relax because nothing is fueling it. It's only when you let the whole chain reaction occur completely without control that it will have physical things, it will have a mental suffering, it will come again and again. So you let the whole system go wild. So then it's very hard to deal with it. But whichever is the strongest on the moment, if you look at it, that aspect is going to start to vanish. So sometimes it's not easy to do it if you are really in the midst of action. Yes. If someone comes and insults you, you're going to say, wait a minute, sit down, I'm going to watch my anger. But, so that's why you need to train when it's less dramatic, because then the skill, you can use it in actual circumstances. If you're already trained, like if someone, a kid that's always bullied by others, they box him and all that. So without telling anybody, he goes away for a few months and trains very hard. So next time when they bully him, he is ready to, punch back. So training here will help. But you have to train in quiet circumstances, I would say. And then you use that, when you do, I don't know, anything. Like, suppose you learned how to walk on a tightrope. You are not going to go between two skyscrapers when you just begin, yes? You gain some skills just 10 centimeters above the ground and then get some more skills, and then you can do it confidently even in difficult situations. So I think that's why we need the training. Meditation is not just to remove yourself from the world, but to prepare to act better in the world. So, likewise, the practice is not to escape the world, is to really train. And then you can use that skill in daily life. And it comes easily and naturally, and you are familiar with it. So you know how to use the tool, see? Even in the quick situations. And then you are less, you are less easily carried away. I mean, it takes a lot for people to unsettle you if you have this, this kind of poise that comes from the practice. And therefore you are more confident, so it works better. I think that's how we should proceed. Well, I don't say it's easy, I just say it takes training. Good.
One more questions from the audience?
We can take. Are we supposed to take a break?
Well,
Yeah, well, why not?
if you want, of course.
Huh?
We can.
It's up to you. It's the planning now.
Possiamo continuare.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because the official conference was supposed to end by 3 o'clock, maybe some people need to leave.
Oh, it was 3 o'clock we finished?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was 5.
No.
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay, so we don't take a break.
No.
Now, do you want to see some photos of Tibet just to finish happily?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is first Tibet. See, not too many traffic jams. Marlborough County. It's the Lake Manasarova near Kailash. It's the highest big lake in the world of fresh water, 4,300 meters or so. It takes 5 days to go round. As you have seen yesterday. Strange kind of lunar landscape in eastern Tibet, very near from that place where there was all this terrible incident yesterday. Actually, I must confess this is a, how do you call it? Photo op. I'd seen this landscape for years and years, about a mile away from the road, and I always wanted to go there. So one day going back to China from Tibet, I had free time. So I told to the monks I was with them, let's go there. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted those monks go back and forth in front of that landscape. So we did it. Half an hour fashion show. The Brahmaputra going around the sky iron blazing mountain in southern Tibet from the plain. Yangtze River. You have seen that yesterday. It's Khyentse Rinpoche going back to monastery of his teacher in 1987, and the place is called the White Hair Path, where you start down with black hair and you have white hair when you get to the top. It's 5,000 meters on top. He was quite happy. Meeting some relatives after 30 years of not seeing them, at least the elder ones. When Khyentse Rinpoche reached to his teacher's monastery, for half an hour there was this fantastic halo appeared, and then the moment he came inside, it went off. Contemplating the ruin of one of the monasteries, 5,600 monasteries were destroyed during the Cultural Revolution. Welcoming hat, it's called. This is in summer. Meeting an old friend after 30 years, and they spend the evening together, and then again never saw each other again. It's a monastery in Tibet where we had built one of the clinics and one of the schools. The yearly Sacred Dance Festival. And then everyone, when the Lama is there, they spend hours gazing from the entrance of the tent in this pouring rain just to look at him. They never get tired. And once we slept under a tent, and when we woke up in the morning, there was a row of head all around the tent, coming under, looking. So one of the young lama pulled out a shaving cream and stuff, and they went on. Oh. Here is a meditator coming out of 6 years retreat. So the question is he so happy because at last he's coming out of retreat, or because he did 6 years retreat? And I think knowing him well, that he's connected with his practice, not the fact that he just finally came out. Find the doctor. This is one of our schools. Prayer flag. Some nomads in a nomad tent. This is a cave of the great yogi Shapkar, who was an 18th, 19th century yogi. I translated his life story. Then I went on pilgrimage to all the places where he did retreats. So this is called the Tigress Fort. It's a quite extraordinary place. And it's quite hard to get to that cave. Consider machine Bhutan. Oh, here in the shadow on the left side, above that patch of sunny patch, is a cave where Consider Machine, this is more than 5,000 meters high. He spent a few winters snowbound alone in retreat. And that's the inside of the cave. And just to get there, I tell you, it's quite a trip. Imagine staying there the winter on your own, by minus 30 degrees or something. I don't know. He made it. This is a sacred lake, also about 5,000 meters. One of our... Oh, he's the one who went straight from the retreat to the lab in Princeton and did this perfect attention test. A festival in Tibet on the occasion of returning of a great Lama. Those are philosophical debates. After studying the whole day for 1 hour in the late afternoon, they debate on the subject they have studied. Making arguments, logical arguments. It's the ultimate fashion show. The whole village puts all their ornaments onto one girl to represent the village. So 20 kilo of corals, amber, she could hardly get her. Of course, there are our friends ready there in case. That was not our car, thanks. And here's a nice combination. And they are trying to see those horse games. So I forgot that he was running towards me, and he would not change his course. So it was a, how do you call it? What is called that? Close encounter. I felt it on my shoulder actually. Fire flags. This is a Buddhist Vajrayana advertisement. Instead of Coca-Cola, it says, "May all beings be happy." Carving blocks in the biggest printing press in history, artisanal printing press. There's 270,000 blocks with the scriptures. And now 100 people printing again. This is part of an album I just did called Motionless Journey, and it's taken over 1 year from the balcony of my hermitage in Nepal. I didn't go anywhere, so that's why it's a motionless journey. but it's all seen from my balcony over 1 year. So this is the same mountain you see in the corner, of course with a different lens, but I didn't go there, I just travel with the lens. Annapurna, this is what I see at breakfast time. On nice days, of course. That's nice with digital camera. You have 20 photos, 19 there's no bird. This looks like Italy, no? Toscana, yes. And it's in the fall. Those flower trees are in autumn. I don't know why. Again, breakfast table. Yeah, not so bad. So those moments sometimes last for 1 or 2 minutes. But if you are just there sitting, not expecting anything, when it comes you take a photo, and then when there's nothing for 1 week, you just put the photo in the closet. So you don't have worry to do an assignment in 1 week. You just don't care. And when it comes, it's beautiful. This is, at the end I thought, well, I should have the day and night. So I start waiting for the full moon, and this is 3:30 in the morning, the full moon, it's not the sun. It's about the time we get up. And then I thought, well, I should try in the darkness. So it was completely dark, and those small lights here, they are the same numbers, but if you wait a long time and there's some mist, it looks like a city, but there's actually almost nothing. And this is 30 minutes of pause, so the stars are moving, so it's called a star track, not Star Trek. But now if you only pause for 15 seconds, they don't move, but they register on the very sensitive camera. Now this is in Bhutan, and I saw a photo of those lakes. It's above the Jomolari base camp, and I really wanted to go there and spend a night there. So I went with some Bhutanese friends, and then it was windy and cold, and I wanted to camp in between the two lakes, and they said, no, we can't stay there, we have to go down to the base camp. I said, look, I walked for 2.5 days to come here, I'm staying, you go. And so finally they stayed, and the next morning, that's what the reward. So it was worth staying overnight. C'est chocolat Suchard. And the flight from Kathmandu to Bhutan is actually the best mountain flight. Some people, tourists pay $150 to do a mountain flight with the Nepalese airplane, but they are scratch windows and they don't fly so high, so it's complete waste. But if you fly to Bhutan, this is a real jet that flies at 10,000 meters and right next to the Everest. So this is the Everest from the cockpit from the jump seat of the pilot in Druke flight. This is a tiger nest in Bhutan. This is part of a forthcoming book on Bhutan. A nice hermitage where not too many people come to disturb the hermit. This was Kensei Rinpoche in that tiger nest, 1980. I had no subject. It was near the Jomolari, so I had to be the subject. I'm sorry for that. But I wanted to do that photo, but there was no one around, so I had to put on the tripod. Rhododendron, like those in the garden here. Teasing the photographer. The fire symbolizes wisdom that burns all the inner poisons. It is all in Bhutan. It's a very, very preserved country, very beautiful. But this is the young incarnation of Khyentse Rinpoche, doing the same ceremony in the same place at 25 years interval. There's a dance festival in one monastery in central Bhutan. They have a lot of clowns, they really keep the public happy. They themselves think it's quite fun. He doesn't really know what's going on. Not sure. Is that my father? It's the black crane that come from Tibet and Siberia to hibernate in Bhutan. It is taken from the aeroplane. The pilot was very kind. He said, I'm going to go very near before landing. So that was a quite unique photo to take. And this is a monastery in Nepal. You see, there's quite interesting similarity. He's watching from the same window in the same room. It's always in Bodh Gaya, where we have that clinic, and this is the place where the Buddha achieved enlightenment. And the Dalai Lama is always receiving teaching from Khyentse Rinpoche. This is their last encounter. The touch head, it was the last moment they saw each other. My first teacher, Kangju Rinpoche. Okay, thank you so much for your patience, attention.